Welcome to the Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. I'm so happy you found us. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on I-Fiber1 News Radio, KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Well, good Friday morning to you. The Daybreak Show here on AM 1030 and FM 103.3 on the 21st day of August already. Good morning, Spencer.
Hey, good morning. TGIF, what's going on?
Not a lot as we are gearing up for another big weekend here. We're seeing some signs of continued rainfall over the overnight, and well, we'll get your forecast here in just a little bit. Today on the show, local news and conversation, a COVID update, a special sheriff sit-down presented by our community credit union, where Sheriff Salisbury and I will talk about the closures happening up at Lake Cushman. Also, Dr. Apostle talks about the upcoming school year, budget, and recent online meeting this past week.
And since our report yesterday, Mason County Public Health was notified of 2 additional Mason County residents that tested positive for COVID-19. Bringing the total to 293 positive cases in Mason County. Mason County Public Health continuing contact interviews. When a positive case completes their isolation period and is released by local public health, they can return to work and normal activities.
Well, for safety and health of public employees and volunteers, the section of Forest Roads 24 and 2451 that provide public access to Lake Cushman, several trails, day-use sites, and staircase, as well as that Party Rock area, will be closed to vehicles and pedestrians starting tomorrow. Recent increased visitation along that narrow road that we've talked about with the sheriff's office over the years has far exceeded capacity to let gridlock, which has resulted in hazardous conditions for the public and Park and Forest Service staff, overflow of vehicles preventing emergency response vehicles and personnel from responding to the scene for recent requests for helps. Overuse of the area has led to resource damage along the corridor. And again, Sheriff Salisbury will be on soon to explain this decision and a little bit more of how and why and what will be happening.
Washington will apply to join a federal coronavirus program providing an additional $300 a week in unemployment benefits, state officials announced yesterday. The Employment Security Department said in a news release that it will apply for the assistance through the Federal Emergency Management Administration no later than today. ESD Commissioner Susie Levine said the state will implement the program quickly as possible once the state's application is approved, and payments will be retroactive to August the 1st. The program came about through an executive order by President Donald Trump after a federally funded $600 boost to weekly state unemployment benefits ended at the end of July.
Well, food trucks, long been seen as an urban treasure, now being saved by the suburbs during our pandemic, no longer able to depend on bustling city centers. Small businesses on wheels venturing out where folks are working and spending most of their time, and that's at home. So now you are often seeing food trucks hunt for customers that used to come to them, and kind of fun, able to skip cooking dinner, and if it's in a neighborhood, maybe you'll walk there and then revisit in with your neighbors, as of course at distance with masks if needed and all that stuff. There are some great food trucks in the Shelton area.
Oh yeah,
Kearns, of course, has got amazing food. Radio Fryer has got some just delicious foods. My folks were out in Grapeview couple weeks back, and they were rolling back through town and stopped at Radio Fryer, get a burger. And my dad says, "Oh man, that's a good burger there." Of course, you and I have had the deep fried cheeseburger egg rolls, and
oh yeah, gosh, I had the bacon. I think it was the bacon egg roll that you recommended that time. Remember when they brought it to the station, and I had just left. I forgot what happened. I wasn't here, and I missed it. I'm like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah, darn. Yeah, you missed it, and I had to eat them all.
Yeah. You're like, they wouldn't keep.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Spencer. I'll tell you about it. Now, those are delicious. And that's cool about those food trucks because it's amazing. I mean, there is, high-quality restaurant food in this tiny little movable restaurant.
Well, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when they were called roach coaches, and when I was growing up in the Bay Area, you didn't eat at those things unless you wanted to have Montezuma's Revenge for a while.
So, no, I do remember that. It was a totally different way that people thought about those things.
Oh, yeah. And this reminds me almost like with this pandemic, it's almost like a modern day ice cream truck, which it's kind of a dying thing in a lot of places in America, even in suburbia. But this reminds me kind of that, where everybody gets excited. They see the ice cream truck, everybody runs out to get in line.
Yeah.
And
well, and I think, too, restaurants, as this early started, restaurants and even taverns and bars were playing with the idea. Some of them were even doing it of not beer to go, but delivery beer. I think there were some inherent problems with that with Liquor and Cannabis Board. But regardless, people were trying all sorts of different things to get food to the people when the people can't come to the food. If you're looking for a great outdoor activity, here is an option for you. You can visit new waterfront sculptures on Percival Landing in downtown Olympia. Each year, the Percival Plinth Project hosts a new group of sculptures on the landing. Community vote is held, and the sculpture with the most votes added to the art collection to display throughout downtown. You can help choose the People's Choice winner. You can vote online with your phones, walking all around Percival Landing. You have until the end of the month. Again, on the show today, Sheriff's Sit-Down Special Edition, talking about the closures happening at Lake Cushman, and Dr. Apostle talks about the upcoming school year, a budget, and recent online meeting that was this week. It's all coming up here on Daybreak.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Well, hi, everybody. Jeff Slakey here on the Daybreak Show. I've got Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury on the line. Morning, Casey.
Good morning.
We found out on social media and around the news that it looks like the national parks and, state and national parks will be limiting access on Party Rock and Staircase Road starting on Saturday, tomorrow. We've talked about this, obviously, for the last couple of weeks. What can you tell us about the reasons for this and how this will impact folks in that area?
That's correct, Jeff. We've had so many problems up there, and law enforcement's ability to have for the federal law enforcement people to have people up there has been very difficult, which results in continued calls to the sheriff's office. Over the weekend, we had a huge amount of people up there blocking the roadway. Emergency vehicles could not get through for assistance. People leaving garbage and all kinds of things up there, clothes, all kinds of camping things, and leaving it down by the water. Disturbances and arguments and fights up there around Party Rock. You and I talked about that a while back, and I'd alluded to the fact that when that becomes a problem, it's gonna have to have a different result. And I actually had requested a meeting with those other jurisdictions, along with the tribal agents and tribal police, and the undersheriff and the chief deputy met with them and had a sit-down meeting. It was determined to close that off.
So it says there will be absolutely no outside public access to Lake Cushman here. We have known that lake access to the lake has been limited this year because of COVID and access from the Skokomish tribe. Forest Service Road 24 will be closed through September 30th. So this is going to be closed for more than a month, and it says it will be manned by law enforcement. Is that going to be Forest Service? Going to be you guys, a collaboration?
I think it's going to be a collaboration because nobody has quite enough people to be there all the time. So we've worked with them for years, and they provide some support for us to patrol for them. But this just got too far out of hand, and I know there's some people that are upset about it, but I guess my response is with every right, there's a responsibility. And if you choose not to be responsible, you start to lose your rights. And it's really too bad. The messes that have been left up there. We've got other places in the county are starting to experience the same thing. And if I have to, they're going to be shut down too. It's unfortunate. There's other places along other bodies of water that we've got photographs of where people literally leave their camping gear, their lawn chairs, the fires are burning, their vinyl floating devices all along the riverbanks and around bodies of water, and just walk off and leave them. And the expense to clean that up and the problems that they're creating simply aren't worth it. I'm going to be cautious to say this because some will disagree with me, but most of it is coming from people out of county that come down here to get out of the city life. They come down here and they leave their garbage behind. The local residents are stuck with it, and it's people are going to be upset on both sides.
I bet.
It's unfortunate that people don't have better control of themselves to do a better job on their own.
So is the majority of the people up there at this in the 20-year-olds? Is this the 20-year-olds?
I'd hate to put it on one age group, but it's usually a younger age group. Now, there should also be noted that there are a number of families and things that go up there to camp at Staircase and are doing really, really well. But when there's a medical emergency and you can't get an ambulance or even a police vehicle through there because people are being so disrespectful, parking onto the main roads and double parking and everything else, it's just unsafe, and we can't have that.
Well, it's unsafe too, and additionally, the houses all up along that area. It's tough for those folks to get in and out when there's that many cars and folks milling about. And I had seen some video on social media of residents up there, and they'd be asking, "Please, can you move?" or kind of saying one side or the other, and the disrespect coming from the folks. The folks that were heading to Party Rock or wherever towards the residents was pretty galling, actually.
I've talked about it. We talked about it in the spring as we came into springtime. I talked about the boating issues and things, and we're right back in it with that. And some of our lakes people just are not being compliant or respectful at all, and we're having to take additional enforcement. It's unfortunate, and there are a number of people, I don't want to even say a few anymore. There are a lot of people creating this problem and bringing it upon themselves and upon others. There's some great people that go up there to park. They go up and they want to hike the high country, and they come back down. They can't leave the area. They can't get out of the area because there's so many people in there. And again, if we have an emergency aspect, or we ended up, a number of years ago, we had a fire up there, we'd never be able to get in. And people are going to be very angry at me for saying this, but they've brought this upon themselves. It's unfortunate that other people can't experience that area and enjoy it because not just a few, but a lot of people have caused this to happen.
It is just a beautiful area, a beautiful part of not only the county, but the state, and it's unfortunate. Party Rock and Staircase access on Lake Cushman closed to everyone per state and national parks tomorrow, August 22nd, until further notice. The Forest Service Road 24 is going to be closed through September 30th, and there will be law enforcement there blocking access. So please share this information with folks, especially if you happen to be friends with those folks coming from out of town to go to those places, so they don't even have to worry about leaving. They can just stay wherever they have come from for now. That is a tough one, Casey, because it is beautiful, and a lot of folks, as you mentioned, head up to Staircase that way.
Yeah, Chief Sperling and the undersheriff and Chief Drackaby, a meeting I haven't been in. This will be put out everywhere across the state about this. There will be signs down below. You noted on our Facebook page, I think there's some stuff on there right now about it, but yeah. It is unfortunate. But like I said, with every right there comes responsibility. And if you're not going to be responsible, your rights or the ability to move around freely are going to start to be taken away, and it's too bad. It really is.
Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury on the phone line with me this morning. Thank you, Casey.
Hey, thank you, Jeff.
You're listening to Daybreak on iFiber One News Radio.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Friday and time now to check in with Dr. Alex Apostle from the Shelton School District. Morning, Alex.
Good morning, Jeff. Pleasure to be here as always.
Watched some of the board meeting earlier in the week, and lots of conversations about the budget. It's about $65 million submitted to OSPI. And so let's walk through this, because there was a lot of information that has impact in the community on the budget.
Sure.
So entities have to have a budget. It has to be presented and submitted to OSPI in the case of school districts, and then they look it over. When does that first send over happen? Like when you start seeing what you could be working with budget-wise for the upcoming school year?
Yeah, that happened about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, where Brenda sent in our 10% reduction, and they review it, of course, and then send it back. And then we review it with the board, and we make adjustments as necessary to make sure that we're in a very solvent position as a school district. And it's not an easy process, and especially when you're talking about people and their life and their jobs. I mean, it's very, very difficult. But we have to remain solvent, as everybody knows. And so you have to do things sometimes that you don't want to do.
Right.
So it's probably one of the most difficult things that a superintendent has to contend with, for sure.
And this isn't just a Shelton issue. You mentioned that the state could be facing a $10 billion deficit this upcoming year. The next year it could be $12 billion. I mean, that's just a lot of money out there, and it's not Shelton School District. It's not Mason County. It's not Washington. It's
Right.
the whole country that is going through this. You did say, for those who didn't catch the meeting, you talked about three things when looking at the budget. Could you talk about those again?
Well, one of the things that we talked about is the fact that enrollment is the driver. And quite frankly, as I mentioned last night, it's we're worried about it. Just like every district across America is worried about it. But we need to make sure that our families and students come back to the Shelton School District because we are going to offer the very best program. Our teachers are going to be teaching the K-12 platform online program. And we know our students, and we can support them under any and all circumstances. But that's a huge issue, and we still don't know for sure, who will knock on the door on the first day of school on September 2nd. But we'll be monitoring that very closely. But we also have to prepare. We're hoping for the best, and we're preparing for what might happen, and we're hoping that we're going to be in great shape. And I believe parents and families believe in our school district, and they'll come back to school. The second item was that this is not a budget that specifically just deals with the 2021 school year. As superintendent, I have to make sure that I'm looking down the road 2, 3, 4 years from now to make sure that we're prepared for anything that might happen in terms of revenue. And when you hear the state talking about a $10 billion deficit, and then I just heard yesterday a $12 billion potential deficit, that comes into the picture also. So those are things that needed to be considered. And then the third item I mentioned was when we go to a different model beyond just 100% online. And of course, we're going to be working with families and students to support them in terms of special circumstances. But if we were to move forward with a hybrid model and an online model, that becomes extremely expensive. Mm-hmm. And we've got to prepare for that also. So those three factors, and there's others, believe me, but those are three major issues that we have batted around for months now. And we still, of course, don't know what the enrollment is going to be for sure. There's no guarantee what the enrollment is going to be. But in the way the budgets are calculated in the state of Washington, and for that matter, probably across the country, enrollment, the number of students you have, drives the revenue. And some people feel that that's archaic, that there's other ways to calculate a school district budget, and I'm sure there are other ways, and I've come up with some ways, but it doesn't matter at this point in time. The way the budgets are calculated and determined for public schools, it's based on enrollment.
One of the other things I heard in there was talking about sometimes, too, the state can withhold funds for various reasons, and we've heard of these reasons over the years. Maybe paperwork not received in a timely manner, or something else may happen. So when you're working on these budgets, is there monies in there? Is this all monies coming from the people in Mason County who support through property taxes in the Shelton School District, the schools, or does that have some state funds that are coming in that you think you're going to get, but then you're not sure? Or is this basically, listen, we're going to do this budget as if the state is unable to help us?
Well, there's money, of course, coming from property taxes, levies, local levies, state support, which is very important. And then you have your grants and federal funding. So you have various pots of money that flow into the school district budget. But, you have to take all that into account as you move forward. Some of it is guaranteed through the Constitution of the state of Washington. Excuse me. But the one thing that we all need to consider is if the state's in debt $10 to $12 billion, that's something we need to keep an eye on as a public school system. And I know that the state does a very fine job under very difficult circumstances to support the schools. But if you have deficits of that kind, you just don't know what can happen. Our main concern right now, quite frankly, is that our families and students enroll in the Shelton School District so that we can move forward. We've projected 4,125 students. That's what we built the budget on. And if we hit that mark, that will be wonderful. But anything under that would be a real issue for us, just as it would be for any school district, or whether it's Olympia, Tumwater, Seattle, Tacoma. If the students aren't there, that's a real challenge to any public school system.
So then again, I think I've asked you this before, but then let's do it again. Let's tell me and tell the listeners, encouraging the parents out there, the reasons why, especially this year, it's important to keep a student enrolled within the Shelton School District rather than pull them from the district and then a parent or homeschool group, maybe, I don't really know, is the main person to give forth the education for the year?
Well, that's a very good question, and I know we've talked about it before, but the issue of continuity, teachers knowing the children, I think, is extremely important in this difficult situation. Moving students to another school district, you're going to run into the same things that we're dealing with here in Shelton. Homeschooling, K-12 platform, it's the same platform, but it's not Shelton teachers teaching it. There is a relationship issue that's very important in the area of student achievement. And when a teacher knows the student and they know what they need in terms of support, that's extremely valuable. And then when things even change more so, and our students come back to school, it will be an easier transition than if they were doing something differently other than enrolling in the Shelton School District. And, I've sent out messages to staff and to the community about the fact that the Shelton School District is continuing to move forward. In fact, there's going to be a mailing to all the community either today or tomorrow, and it's going to spell out what the Shelton School District is doing. Even during these difficult times, we are moving forward with the academic program, with our academies. We're going to be initiating a manufacturing academy on the Shelton campus. We're looking at a variety of new programs, a trades academy, and so on. Great things are coming for our students here in the Shelton School District, and I'm hoping that they're a part of that. we're trying very hard. I will tell you that. We're working 7 days a week, many hours every single day to start school on a positive note. I just want to let the community know that this is not easy. There's no blueprint. There's no blueprint at the federal level, nor at the state level, or at the local level. I mean, we're doing the best we can under these very difficult and challenging times.
Well, I definitely heard it in the board members' voices talking about, the positions that will be potentially laid off here if the budget is adopted here. They're not on paper. It's a number, and it says 1 FTE or 2 FTE. And I think Carrie brought it up, and Lynn brought it up too, that, they understand that there are people and families behind these positions. But at this point, the district, and it's not just the district, cities, counties, states, right. Everybody is having some real hard looks and tough discussions on how to keep things fiscally solvent. And it's just a tough situation everybody's in.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And in terms of the process issue that we had last night, I take full responsibility for that. And we're going to be moving quickly to resolve that and move forward. But I just want to say there's going to be additional challenges, and there will be mistakes made as we move down this road. We've not been here before.
Right.
We're trying to do everything we can to avoid problems and mistakes, but it's going to be difficult. And I would appreciate everyone's consideration and thought in terms of what I've just said.
There is a school board meeting that's online coming up on August 25th that people are able to log in and watch that one. And then the first day of school is coming up on September 2nd. It's less than 2 weeks away. Dr. Alex Apostle, good to talk with you. I know you and the board are facing some tough decisions here, and we appreciate your candor and conversations here on the morning show.
Thank you very much, Jeff. You have a good day.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
And now it's time for this week's Steve Kramer's Fishing Report, only on iFiber One News Radio. Find Steve's fishing log, Kramer's blog, guide trips, resources, and more on his website, KramerTackleandGuide.com.
This is Steve Kramer from Kramer Tackle with this week's Fishing Report. The bay's been decent down here in Area 13. I'm hearing of some fish being caught off a fish trap by guys jigging white grim reefers. I know of a 32-pounder caught right in front of Zittle's Marina on a coyote spoon earlier this week. I caught a couple steelhead on the hump tulips this week also. Coon shrimp under a float was my trick. I've heard the ocean's been hit or miss, but I expect some fish to be showing up in better numbers with this low pressure we have coming through this weekend. If it was me, I would look for some king salmon down on the Nema or the nacelle. I would also look for some steelhead on the Wainuchi or the hump tulips. And if you need to fish the bay, I think Fish Trap's going to be your hot ticket. So if you can, please take a kid fishing and make sure you check out the recreations page at iFiber1.com, and don't forget my site, KramerTackleandGuide.com. This has been Steve Kramer. Thanks for listening and good fishing.
Thanks for listening to this week's Steve Kramer's Fishing Report, only on iFiber One News Radio. Remember to check out Steve's website with his fishing log, Kramer's blog, guide trips, resources, and more at KramerTackleandGuide.com.
Thank you so much for listening to today's Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. Again, I'm so happy and honored you found us and chose to listen. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of some of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on iFiber One News Radio KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Thank you so much again, and talk with you next time.